everyone! I made this video for anyone thinking about doing the 5+1 program to become a psychologist. This is where you do 5 years of study, so it could be your undergrad, your honors, and then a 1-year master's, or it could be your undergrad and a 2-year master's. And then you do 1 year working as a provisional psychologist. So in this video, I'm going to share with you guys a few things that I wish I knew before I started looking for a job as a provisional psych, so that it helps you find your feet. First, we'll cover what it's like finding a job, then we'll delve into finding a supervisor, and finally, I'm going to discuss what the Ahpra requirements look like to give you a realistic perspective of the work and study balance. Also, remember to like and subscribe, especially if this content is helping you. With all of that said, let's get into the video. So first up, when it comes to finding a job as a provisional psychologist, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking. A lot of people worry that they might not be able to find a job, or they might not be able to find paid employment. So I want to put your mind at ease. Psychology is a growth-based industry, and job growth is expected to increase by 20% over the next 5 years. In addition to this, with the 4+2 program being phased out, the demand for provisional psychologists is likely going to increase. This is my own speculation, but a lot of companies do rely on provisional psychs because they're more affordable and can be molded under the company's ethos. So you can go into looking for a job with a bit of ease. The job market is in your favor. You are in demand. In terms of the actual work that's available, it is so varied. Some of the themes that I have noticed include work helping clients with barriers to employment, rehabilitation, NDIS, private practice, working in jails, in schools. There are so many different positions available to provisional psychologists. And it's highly likely that during your master's, you'll have the opportunity to do a placement so you can dip your toes in the water and work out what job you'd like to do as a provisional psychologist. The piece of advice that I'd give here, if you graduate from your master's and you're not too sure what group you want to specialize working with, is to go for a job opportunity where you'll get exposure to a really broad range of presentations. People of different ages, different cultures, go for a role that's very varied. And this will give you a great generalist skill set and help you work out what client group you'd like to specialize in helping down the track. If you're lucky and you know what you want to specialize in, then this is the time in your career to start niching down. Work specifically with your interest to become an expert, because this is going to give you that edge compared to other psychologists when you become fully registered. In terms of finding a supervisor, there's a number of ways you can go about this. You might connect with someone during your master's. The company that you end up working for might provide a supervisor or funding to access a supervisor. And then there are many supervisors out there that would be willing to take on provisional psychologists independently. So you really do have a lot of options. There's also the choice of enrolling into the College of Professional Psychology, otherwise known as COPP. Their 1-year program is designed to help you while you're working as a provisional psychologist. They will set you up with a supervisor, provide you opportunities for professional development, and they will also provide you with practical support for the assessment. However, it's worth noting that their fees are really high. It's $15,000 for their support. And along with this, they don't give you a lot of choice in terms of the supervisor that they pair you with. If you look for a supervisor independently, it will likely cost you half or 2/3 of this price, and you will have more agency in who you pick. This is an important distinction because having a good supervisor is going to be the key factor in terms of setting you up for success. When you think about it, the person that you spend the most time with on the journey towards becoming fully registered is your supervisor, so they really do play a vital role in your professional development. You want to find a supervisor who has a lot of experience taking on provisional psychologists and good insight and experience with Ahpra's assessment requirements. Personally, I think that if you can find a really good supervisor, you will be fine, and you won't really need an institution like COPP to help you out on your journey as a provisional psychologist. Finally, let's break down the Ahpra requirements so you have a better idea of what the work-life balance will look like while you're working as a provisional psych. In terms of hours, you will need 1,400 of psychological practice, 80 hours of supervision, and 60 hours of professional development. This is a total of 1,540 hours for that year. And if we break this down even more, on average, you'll need to do 26 hours of psychological practice per week, along with 1.5 hours of supervision and 1 to 2 hours of professional development development per week. From my experience, this is definitely manageable as long as you can find a company that provides you with enough client hours. You need to be careful because there are some out there that don't quite do this. So it's definitely something you should suss out in the interview. In terms of the assessment, you'll need to keep a logbook of your psychological practice, professional development, and supervision, which will need to be submitted to the board. This means that each week you're going to need to be tracking your hours, and I do not own this template, so I can't share it with you guys, unfortunately, but basically you want to develop an Excel spreadsheet that tracks what you're doing each week in these 3 areas. You and your supervisor will also need to submit a 6-month progress report on how you're tracking with the 8 core competencies, and then in terms of the assessment, you're going to need to do 4 case reports, 2 of which will need to be submitted to Ahpra, along with sitting the National Psychology exam. The most helpful advice that I've received in terms of studying and keeping up with this workload is to constantly chip away at this. Put some time into your calendar to be studying during the week and on the weekend. Also set yourself deadlines for these tasks and keep yourself accountable to it, and start studying for the National Psychology exam as soon as you can. If you take the exam and you fail, it's not the end of the world. You can always resit it, but it is a little bit pricey, so it's best to start studying ASAP. In sum, my average work week as a provisional psychologist looks like this. I start working at around 8:30 and I usually finish at about 5, but there are a couple of nights a week where I'll probably work overtime. There's also 1 or 2 nights a week where I will divert just to studying, and most Saturdays I divert to studying as well. However, I always take Sunday off. This is a non-negotiable. So I'd say you can get a bit of a work-life balance, but don't get me wrong, it is a pretty full-on year. In this video, I've given you a really broad idea of what it's like to get started working as a provisional psychologist. I'm going to leave some helpful links down below to give you guys some more information, but I really hope that this was helpful, and if it was, remember to like and subscribe, and maybe I'll see you guys in another one of my videos. Okay, bye!